Hello QEP instructors. Welcome to this refresher video on the student surveys. In this video, first we'll talk about why we care about the student surveys. Then we'll go through the 4 steps that you need to follow to get those surveys done. So why are they important? Well, on page 1, we ask a series of questions that measure whether the students followed the process writing steps. Questions 1 through 6 measure those individual steps. For example, did you do your pre-writing to the best of your ability? How many times did you go to the writing center? How many revisions did you do? These are interesting to us one by one, but mostly what they do is prime the students to answer question 7, which says, I did process writing to the best of my ability. That question 7 is really important to us because it's one of the 2 ways we measure student learning outcome 2. Students wrote using a recursive process. The other way that we measure it, if you remember, is we ask the instructors, did their students use process writing to the best of their ability? All of our other student learning outcomes are measured by the essays, the beginning and ending semester essays, but student learning outcome is only measured by these 2 surveys. So then there's also question 8 on page 1 of the survey, which is an attitudinal measure. So because we do page 1, I can report this sorts of information. Question 7 says, overall, I engaged in process writing to the best of my ability. And 56% of the students strongly agreed and 41% agreed. So that's important information. It's higher than the instructor's responses on that, but that's to be expected. I can also report this. Question 8, process writing helped me produce better papers. And that shows that 58% strongly agreed, 39% agreed. So we know that the students understand the point of process writing. Now, on the top of page 2, we ask the students, were the process writing steps helpful to you? And because we ask those questions, we can report this kind of information. I report that both in the aggregate and to you individually as an instructor. At the bottom of page 2, we ask, were the writing to learn activities helpful to you? And I report this both in the aggregate, which is what this is here, and then to you individually what your class answered. So that's why we do it. Now, how do you go about it? First, you find the survey template. If you go onto the Blackboard and find the place where it says My Organizations, you should have QEP under there. Click on that. Then look to that left side and you'll see Student Surveys. Click on that. In that content area, I've uploaded 2 files. The student survey for the EN 213 instructors and the student survey for the upper level classes out in the disciplines. I've also sent out this email which has those 2 files attached, so you can look there as well. Once you have the survey, you have to do some minor modifications to make it fit your class. On page 1, there are no changes, well, except for one thing for the upper level classes. On that question 1, they can fill in their own section. For example, as a result, I began this section of Chemistry 404. But EN 213 instructors don't have to change anything on page 1. It's page 2 where we make the modifications. Now, this is the top of page 2 where we list the process writing steps. You'll see here I have some that are in white. On the surveys themselves, they're in red, but red didn't show up here, so I'll put them in white. I have here listing, looping, graphic organizer, free writing, clustering in white, because those are the steps, the pre-writing steps that you may or may not use in your class. If you use them, keep them on there. If you don't use them, take them off. This is where you modify it to fit your class. Now, I didn't put the last 4 items in white because I'm hoping that everybody's doing this as part of the process. Writing and revising multiple drafts, holding the peer review groups, sending students to the writing center, and holding conferences with individual students. Because if you remember, that is the most effective way to improve student writing is to meet with the students one-on-one. At the bottom of page 2, all of these are in white because what you do in your class for Writing to Learn is completely up to you. If you use any one of these, keep it on there. If you use something else, put it on there and take the ones that you don't use off. I find that the people who don't take everything off get weird responses because the students sometimes say that things that they did were helpful when they didn't really do them. A bunch of them will say does not apply. It just confuses the students. So really make this fit your class and use the terms that you use in your class. If you do journal writing, but you call it something else, take off journal writing and put what you call it. So once you have pages 1 and 2 modified, you pass it out to the students. Now here's what we found based on instructor responses. Here's what we found that works. Give the survey on a high attendance day. For some people, they do it during the individual conferences. They hold their conference and then they say, can you just sit outside and complete this survey? Some people do it on exam day. Before the exam begins, they spend 5 minutes doing the survey. Another thing that people do is that they distribute the surveys over more than one class period. So let's say they choose a week towards the end of the semester. They give the survey on Monday. Then on Wednesday, they ask the people who weren't there on Monday to complete the surveys. And on Friday, same thing. Those are the people that get the highest number of responses. We also know what doesn't work. The main thing is this one. If you don't hand the surveys out, your response rate is horrible. Also, we have found people that use email to get the surveys don't get a good response rate either, so we don't recommend that. Once you get the surveys, you just email me and I'll arrange to come pick them up. We used to ask that you put them in your portfolio, but I'd rather get them right at the end of the semester so that we can start tallying the results. So that's it about the student surveys. Email me if you have any questions. And again, thank you for all you do to make the QEP a success.